This is Everyday Expertise, and I'm Angela, and I'm here today with talented Chicago-based artist Morgan N. Marshall. Hello.
Hello.
So, how did you get started doing art?
I started doing art pretty young. It was always a hobby for me. I always did like the my first thing was like the little blow paints that you like blow in and like spray paints out, and I just kind of like always continued doing that. When I was in grade school, I was got like most millennials, I got obsessed with anime, and I started drawing a lot of like different characters and stuff, and like I really enjoyed and appreciated like animated movies and just like the artiste behind it, and it just kept carrying over into my life.
Hmm. When did you decide you wanted to do it as a career?
So I actually decided that after college. So in college, I'm actually a biology major and a chemistry minor.
Hmm.
And I took art classes on the side just because I liked art. And once I got out I took a 2 year gap year working in a lab. And while I was in the lab, I started doing different things for like science and whatnot. And I couldn't figure out what I exactly wanted to go into. And I spent a lot of my time doing a lot of the images and like data compiling and like medical images for the lab until one of the PhDs just finally like asked me like, why don't you just do like medical illustration? And I actually ended up going to graduate school for medical illustration for 2 years, and I graduated this in 2020. So I've been doing medical art as a career for now a year, and I balance it also with doing like fine art on the side.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, what are your preferred mediums?
My preferred medium for my fine art is oil paint. I really, really love oil paint. I didn't actually use oil paint until after college when I was 22. I had stuck with acrylic for a really, really long time because that's what they taught me in high school, and I was just really used to it. And I think every artist kind of has a way that they like use their hand when painting. And I think when I was using acrylic, I was kind of unconscious to how much I was rushing against like the drying time and like trying to like forcefully blend it like all the time. And then when I picked up oil painting, I was like, oh, this is perfect for me because I don't have to like try to like rush and like smudge it in there like really quickly. Like it's really nice malleable paint, and it doesn't dry very quickly. And I ended up like really liking oil paint because of that.
That's cool.
Mhm.
So, what would be your major influences?
Ooh, okay, so my major influences are Kine Wiley. He did the Obama portrait, is what he's most notable for. I liked him like along like when I was in high school because he came out with these really large scales, like Renaissance level portraitures that really stood out to me as like a minority in America. Because when you go into like museums, I'm not sure how it is in other places of the world, but I know in America it's very you see typically the same thing over and over again. So like the first time I saw his paintings that were still like on that same like grand scale, it was really shocking and also very inspiring. I was like, wow, okay, this is interesting. So I like kind of became obsessed with him. And I think he's a pretty hardcore driving force of like my inspirations and also like my style. And then my next one would be Frank Stella. So Frank Stella is more of an abstracted person, but I really, really appreciate the way he does these things where he never sticks to like the traditional shape of a canvas. He kind of builds his own shapes, or like he builds the canvas before he paints on it, which I think is a really cool practice. And I've been trying to incorporate that more into my own craft. And I think my very last one, her name is Soy Milk. I discovered her on Instagram, and she does these really beautiful portraits of women, and like the background's always super abstract, and the figure themselves are pretty like lifelike. And I just think that's really interesting. So I think those are my top three that I draw inspiration from.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, well, like, yeah, I've noticed. I really like your art. It's really beautiful. I've noticed
Thank
that you
you.
you have this great sort of this great use of color. They're beautiful, vibrant colors, and this very sort of a fantastical blending of, say, of portraiture and nature. What about these themes and motifs speak to you as an artist?
Uh, I really, really love using vibrant colors. Like I've always like tried to limit my palette because I feel like that's like a common thing in like art practices. They try to see, oh, try limiting your art palette, and I start off with a limited palette a lot, and then I'm like, no, I need some more. I need some. So it just like I think it just draws my eye to use like pretty much the entire range of color. And then I also really enjoy nature a lot. There's something that's really nice. Like I know like a lot of things in nature are green, but there's something very interesting with the way like the organic shapes move and blend into figures and backgrounds that I always like to explore. Because like
Mm.
you think like I feel like when you actually start looking into like nature and foliage, you think you kind of like have like the same like, cookie cutter idea of what like a leaf looks like, but then when you actually like get up close, you realize there's like millions. I don't know if that's actually accurate. I'm not like a plant expert, but like there's like hundreds of different shapes and sizes and like colors of like all these different leaves and whatnot. And it's really interesting to like, explore that. And I feel like I just really have like a low key love for plants and whatnot. So it just kind of shines through.
You've also started incorporating like sort of a 3D sort of quality to your works. You've been adding this is sort of the addition of like flowers or these sort of cutout leaves that you put onto the canvas. Um, how did you start uh, doing that, and what about that sort of addition to the like? What about that sort of appeals to you?
I'm not sure why it really like overtly appeals to me, but I've actually been doing that method. I've actually come back to it. So when I was in high school, I did a series on like it was mostly on paper back when like high school. They're not giving us like expensive oil paint canvases, no, but it was acrylic on like paper, and I would always get like frustrated that I had to like stay in the bounds. And I remember like asking my teacher, could I just like add additions onto like the paper? And she's like, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. So I started like cutting out. I don't have a lot of my early like high school work online, but it's I started cutting out pieces, and I started like layering on different things. And I stopped doing that when I actually went to college, and I'm not actually sure why. Remember like just like more when you get into more like fine art in college, they kind of teach you like the conventional shapes.
Mm,
And when I got out of college, I started sketching a lot. And every time I sketched, I would do this little box around like the sketch, but I would make different parts of like the sketch come out of that box. And I just really liked the way it looked like a overspill. And there was just like one day where I was like portrait painting, and I was like, I want to make this a little bit more fun. So I started brainstorming different ways to construct like a logistical way to build outside of the campus. And I found a way that worked. So I really enjoy doing that because it just helps like not limit your creativity. Because that's one thing I hate is like I have to like, oh, this doesn't fit, or oh, I made this proportion too small or too big. It's just like when you have the ability to like spill it over, it's just like you can have fun with it. Like, oh, this elbow's slightly off the page in my last one. And so I just made a little extra piece of the elbow that's coming off of the canvas. And it looks really nice, actually.
mm.
So
Yeah, it
I
sort of it
like
gives
that.
this effect of like it's coming, it's reaching out of the picture almost. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
really like it's like coming out.
yeah. Okay, so this shows very much about process. Can you walk me through your process of creating a piece from, say, idea to finished piece?
Okay. So I usually start with like a lot of brainstorming. My process in the beginning is actually a lot of words. So I'm actually do like stuff where I like write down keywords and try to figure out what I actually want to do. And I end up like kind of like taking that together. And then I start to get like an image in my head, and I freehand sketch a concept sketch. So I try my best not to like sketch the concept from a reference. originally because I don't want to limit that to like just what's available in a reference.
Mm,
And then after I do a concept sketch, I actually ask or bug my friends to pose in the same like manner, like different iterations. So I actually Zoom called like the most two recent two that I'm working on. I Zoom called with my friends that I asked to be the models, and I posed them myself. So I was just like on the screen telling them, "Oh, tilt your head back a little bit more, or like raise your elbow," and like I send them the sketches beforehand so they have an
mm,
idea of like what I'm looking for, and I go based off the references that they give me, and then from there I actually take the body and I go in Photoshop and I Photoshop together a full fledged realistic or more realistic reference that's not that looks similar to the concept sketch so that I actually use. So after I basically like kind of like cut out the body and then like I find different backgrounds royalty free.
mhm,
I don't definitely need copyright codes.
yeah.
um, and I put it all together and it's like kind of like cut it. It's basically like kind of like a collaging together this image in my head. And it
Mm,
doesn't have to be like super perfect because when I start painting, I'll fill in certain gaps and whatnot. But that's usually how I do that process. And then I start painting from that.
mhm. Do you seal your paintings with anything?
I use a gloss varnish.
Mhm.
I'm if that's what that means with the sealing.
Yeah, I guess
I
so.
know Yeah, I know a
Yeah.
lot of artists use resin. I haven't really dipped into resin yet, but
Mm,
I use gloss finish, and it kind of like helps protect the paint layer once
mm,
it's dry.
that's cool. What are you making the cutouts out of?
Okay, so I had an epiphany like during like a fever dream at like 3 a.m. I was like, I could use hardboard and just cut it out. And then like I basically just used this hardboard, not cardboard, because I found out cardboard does not work. I tested it with cardboard.
Yeah.
Cardboard is terrible. It's too flimsy and the oil paint just kind of like gets absorbed. But hardboard is really nice. It's very sturdy, very light, so it doesn't like weigh down the canvas at all or the way down the painting. It feels like kind of like the same weight. And I after I cut out the shapes, I use it as a stencil on like a pre-stretched, like a mini. I've been buying like really inexpensive canvases that are pre-stretched and like using the stencil of the hardboard to
Mm,
draw the shape out on the canvas, and then I cut the shape from there, and then glue down the canvas on the hardboard because a lot of places sell like hardboard canvas hardboards that like Blick and Michaels. So I've just
mm.
been like basically like creating my own little hardboard canvases as the shapes and then like attaching them to the canvas.
Okay, that's cool. Oh, okay. What is something you wish you'd known about painting before you began?
um That's a good one. I wish I had known how different mediums work with oil painting. I am still kind of like discovering it. When I was in college, we just kind of dipped our pen in liquid. We didn't really get like a comprehensive rundown of like all the different types of mediums and solvents. And I wish I had a little bit more knowledge and like what they do to the paint. Because it's been a lot of trial and error. Now I feel like I've mastered it. I know which ones do which and what does what in what amount. But it was like it would have been nice to have like a little guide, like oh, liquid speeds up the drying time but makes your paint really transparent. Or like linseed doesn't make it transparent, but it makes it very smooth to go on the canvas. Just stuff like that.
Mm,
Like especially with oil paint, because I feel like with like acrylic, really your only medium is like water for the most part, and with oil, there's like a wide variety of different things you can use.
mm, that's interesting.
Mhm.
How do you integrate your art into your daily life? How do you essentially manage work-life balance?
Okay, so from 8 to 4 p.m. is my medical illustration work, all my medical stuff. And then I take like a nice little break, maybe watch like movie afterwards, like, unwind. And then I put on the fine art mode around like 6, 7 p.m. and go down into my art studio, which is in the basement, and just
Mm.
kind of chill out down there and start painting. I do live streams on TikTok randomly enough of that, and people seem to like it. So,
And do you do that? So is that like 5 days a week kind of thing, or yeah, sort of?
for the most part, for the most
Yeah.
part, it's 5 days a week. It's usually when I'm like up for it. I try not to like force myself since it is
Hmm.
like I don't want to force my fine art because I feel like if I do that, the art itself would suffer. But
Hmm.
I don't find myself having to force myself a lot. Like it's really fun, like to just paint and chill out. I'm really excited about, especially when I'm excited about the pieces. It kind of doesn't feel like work, or it's just really fun to go down the stairs and do.
What is your favorite aspect of art?
I like how fun it is. You can like kind of like lose yourself. It feels like meditation almost.
Hmm.
It's a great way of expressing, and like I like how there's no rules in art for the most part, which is really great. Like I think like when you go through like school and like art training, you start getting into these arbitrary rules in your head, and I think there's like a point where I was like, I don't have to do that. It's just you start realizing that it's like nothing, no one in art is telling you you have to do anything. So it's really nice. It's very freeing, and it's just like you can just do whatever, experiment, and like just have fun with it.
Do you have a least favorite? Something that frustrates you?
I think my least favorite, I think it's just I start to. I think this is like just like an artist thing. Like I think it's like across the board. A lot of artists start to get wrapped up in every piece has to be a masterpiece. So I think my least favorite thing sometimes is myself and how much I beat myself up with like a lot of my art pieces. But then like you can pull yourself out of that after a while. But I think that's just like an artist thing. Like a lot of my friends are artists, and we all kind of do that thing where it's like art block happens because you're stunted and like afraid of like your next piece being like terrible, and really like you just kind of let it go, you know.
Mm.
Yeah, in the famous words of Britney Spears, not every performance is a good one, so you just gotta let it flow. It's like it just happens. So it's like as long as you learn in the process. I think it's like I have to keep reminding myself that the process is what the artist enjoys, and you
Mm.
can't always like look forward to the end result.
Yeah, that makes sense. So on that, how do you cope with stress or obstacles and with block if you get it?
When I get art block, I it took me years to do this. I'm like 26 going on 27 now. So I've definitely matured a little bit more. But when I was like younger, I would hate getting art block. I'd fall into like a dramatic like angst moment and everything. I'm like, I'm never gonna do art again or stuff like that. And I'm terrible. I'm the worst artist in the world. But now that I'm like a lot older and a little bit more mature and chill, I'm just like, if I can't figure out or don't have any ideas of what to draw, I'm just like, well, I suck at painting hands. I should paint some hands until I figure out some more ideas. Like, like there's always something you like can improve on. It's like, so I'm like, I've learned to take art block as a mature artist as an opportunity to fix the things that you know you avoid purposely. Like I know there's a lot of artists to avoid hands. So now in my free time in art block, I paint and draw hands to kind of like ramp that up. Cause I'm like, when I paint and draw hands, I'm anticipating it not being great, to be honest. So it's like, that's really nice in art block where it's like, okay, just get it onto paper. Like there's no expectations here. And it's really helps improve that technical skill. Or I just relax, sit back and watch some YouTube videos of other art. So I
Mm.
take art block more as like a mini mental vacation nowadays versus like this terrible thing, which is really I've liked the way I've been using that approach.
That's good.
Mhm.
So, do you have any advice for people starting out in painting?
I think for people starting out in painting, it is very important, and it's very tempting, I know, to like just ghost over the fundamentals, like go straight to like rendering and whatnot. But it is very important to learn the fundamentals. Maybe not to like the extent that they push it down your throat in like school. Like the amount of color wheels I made was obscene. Like it was not needed. So. but it is important to like know how to like mix certain like tints, shades, and whatnot because and I also like I think what helps my art improve a lot is like I did a lot of black and white studies. Like I like thinking about art and painting as like the X, Y, and Z axes. Like art as it already is in black and white is like an X and Z, X and Y axis.
Hmm.
But when you add color, you add in that like that Z that makes it like really three dimensional. Because you have to start thinking about hue and saturation and whatnot. And I think doing black and white really helps you with that. And then you can start adding in color, and your color will be a lot better if you get that foundation down better first. Because sometimes the brightest color isn't technically the brightest, if that makes sense. Like there's a lot of yellows that are cool, and a lot of reds that are warm, and it gets interesting. Like if you start learning like that in that sense, you can really pop your art to the next level.
Are there any tutorials that you found really useful or books about color theory?
Um, I cannot name them off the top of my head, but I spent a lot of time just like digging through YouTube, typing in painting technique or oil painting approach or oil painting black and white, oil painting color, stuff like that. Like and just like listening to like just like stuff I would listen to before I go to sleep sometimes. So, like I would put it on and just kind of cuddle in bed and like kind of like mentally take notes, which is really nice. Like you don't always have to like follow along. Like if you're absorbing, just like pay attention to like what's on the screen and then use it in practice maybe the next day or in later. That's usually what I've done. My YouTube recommendations are just all art related things because I've been self teaching for a while.
Okay. So, Morgan, how can people find out more about you and your work?
You can follow me or go to my website, which is morganmarshallart.com, which is my fine art website. And from there, you can see like my Instagram, which I post a lot on. I like to post my process and I answer any questions that are thrown my way on there because I'm still like a more locally known artist versus like a larger scale one. So I always talk back to people, unlike big accounts. So, so if anyone ever has any questions, I will always be happy to answer.
Well, that's awesome. And we'll have links to everything in the description below. So, check her out. Well, thank you, Morgan.
And thank you. This has been awesome.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. This has been Everyday Expertise. Bye.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this interview. Be sure to share this video with friends and colleagues who may also enjoy this topic. Let us know your thoughts by leaving a comment below or check the description for our social media. See you next time.